Hi, everybody, and welcome back to the GallowgateShots YouTube channel and podcast. And we are here for your second upbeat, happy match reaction of the week. After the result against Man United, we go into a home clash against Arsenal. And it's always a game which is worth talking about as well. But there's even more talking points on this one than what we'd normally have. So I am your host today, Chris, joined by Joe and Andy. Andy is in preparation of going to Germany as well, mate. So,
am I? I've not mentioned it.
You're not mentioning it, but we'll hear about that towards the end of this recording. So it is Newcastle United who welcome Arsenal to St James's Park, and I just want to address something straight away, boys. It feels a bit weird being confident going into these sort of games at the moment, and I think I'm at the point now where I know in previous weeks and previous games I've thought. Are we allowed to be optimistic yet? I think I'm allowed to be now because rightly so we're going in these games and showing the rest of the Premier League and the rest of the world that we are here for business.
Yeah, well, we've shown that in the last couple of years we can win any team against any team in any kind of way. We've had scrappy wins, we've had absolute blowouts, beating teams 4-5-0, but we've shown that we can have a really dirty side to our game, and that is what I think gives me confidence, because you've got some teams who are quite one-dimensional and they'll play their way, and sometimes it'll work out for them, sometimes it won't. But as we've seen, that we can take any kind of game to any kind of team and come out on top if we're on our day, and that was what happened today.
Yeah, I agree with you and Andy. Like obviously you would have been there at St James's Park, and you start talking about the game beforehand with those around you, and everyone was feeling a little bit confident. I'm not sure if it was the lineup which we saw from Arsenal. It was still a strong lineup, but obviously there was a couple of players missing from the centre midfield. But for us, I think we know for fine well if our three midfielders in the likes of Joe Linton, Longstaff, and Bruno are starting, we're going to control most games.
Yeah, it's mad. I was saying to my dad before the game, it's nice now to actually be able to have a conversation before these games rather than just saying we're going to get destroyed, which was obviously the how it was for so long. And I feel like we don't even worry about the opposition's lineup. I didn't even realize Ødegaard was injured. We just look at our team and go, that's a class team that can beat anyone. And it's not even arrogant to say that now, or naive to say that. Like Joe says, there's so many games now where if you try and defend off us, we've got ways of breaking down any team. If you try and make the game difficult, we're the masters at that, and we'll beat you at that as well. If you try and beat us in midfield, we'll do that.
Yeah, well, I think it might have been Arteta that said that, wasn't it? Arteta that said that last time. It was one of them that wasn't happy.
And it's just amazing now that we've got these teams with these ridiculous talent like Saka not doing anything in the game, midfielders who have won European Championships, won World Cups, and they don't know what to do when they come to St James's Park, and it's amazing. I love it.
Yeah. So like I said, we do have lots of talking points, okay, but we're going to obviously cover bits of the game, obviously go through the likes of the goal which was scored, but I think there's going to be a lot of sideways movements in this as well, because obviously the reaction which we've seen after the game is going to be a big talking point as well. Yes, we'll cover a lot of this on Monday night's Always Smiling Faces podcast as well, but it's a match reaction, so we need to do it twice. And I think I'm going to enjoy doing it twice as well this week. So, Joe, in relation to the starting lineup which we put out there, was there any shocks for you? Because I know Popes came on us a little bit of criticism, and Dubravka had a decent game against Man United. Obviously, the impact which Livramento had, Hall had at left back. Then any doubts for you, or just business as usual?
No, not a chance. Realistically, with the injuries that we've got, we don't really have much that we can change. I think the amount of changes that we had for Man United were a little bit surprising. Obviously, seeing Target come in at like a CDM role for all of 80 seconds, mind you, but that was what was a little bit surprising. But it wasn't, to see an unchanged side from the last Premier League game wasn't. But having said that, it was fantastic to see how even you could say, well, I wouldn't say a B team, but not a fully fit side can still take someone who's fighting at the top end of the table to the sword. As for the fullbacks, Livramento and Hall did phenomenally, but they're very young, and I think they're mature enough to understand that they need to be embedded into the squad the same way that most of our players have done. I mean, Bruno obviously is a famous example of that. So back four, not surprised at all. Pope, yeah, okay, his distributions come under a little bit of criticism, but at the end of the day, he's still on number one. He was still brought in, well, technically not because Dubravka is, but he's on number 22. he came in. He's our first choice keeper, and that is unequivocal. It's good that Dubravka's getting minutes, though, and it's great that we've got that strength and depth for keepers, because I'm hoping that we'll get even further into the Carabao Cup. We'll, get far into the FA Cup, and we're going to need to rely on these kind of players for that. But as for the Premier League, we need to keep a solidified back four as much as possible. I do think Hall and Livramento will be embedded into our side eventually. It's a case of when, not if, but we need to be patient with them. So I wasn't surprised at all.
Yeah, I'm the same as you. And despite how well the lads played against Man United during the weekend in the Carabao Cup, you've got to stick with the lads that have done so well at the back. And I want to highlight Jamal Lascelles once again. He's going to be a huge talking point. He honestly,
king,
unbelievable.
He is an absolute rocket. Do you know what it is? And he's came under a lot of criticism over the years from Newcastle fans, myself included as well, because there has been times where he has looked a bit sloppy and off the pace. But since he's came in and filled that void which Botman has left there, he has been remarkable, Andy.
Oh, I love him. And he's one of these players where when we got the new owners and we started transitioning, that was one of the first names on the chopping block, really. Even though he stuck with us when we were really bad, he gave a lot of players a kick up the backside when we were really, really bad. But just the way he's come on, we all knew he was an absolute rock, absolute concrete head, could put a great sort of 2-footer challenge in, and that he'd give everything. But even just on the ball, he looks so much better. I mean, it must be from good coaching, but not just passing it side to side, not just laying it off to Shah every time, actually trying to play vertical passes into the midfield, straight down the line. He just looks like a different player altogether. And don't get me wrong, Sven Botman is the dogs. He is going to be the best centre-back at the club for hopefully the next 10 years. And when he is fit, you do think Lascelles comes out again. But we've gone from thinking, oh, God, it's Lascelles coming in to, right, yeah, get in. Lascelles is in. He's absolutely class. And it's those players, and even Matt Ritchie coming on for 20 minutes at the end. I wasn't panicked at all, because I know these lads are coached so well, and that they all understand the tactics. They all have the same mantra. They all have the same work ethic. You just don't worry when these players come on, and they've done amazing. So credit to Howe and Tyndall and all of them.
What I love about Lascelles here, Joe, is that he's now got this signature move, which once used to be Paul Dummett's signature move as well, where he just used to smash somebody in the East Stand. Lascelles is doing that.
Slide tackle through ball
now. Just a slide tackle. He absolutely wipes the player out, but wins the ball so well at the same time. And that's honestly, the crowd celebrate that like a goal.
Yeah, I thought you were going to say his signature slab-heat header that he does, because he still gets them in a few times a game, mind. But as Andy was saying, he's come on so much as a player. He's looking sharp. That the passing that you've already mentioned, we never used to see that under previous management. He was always this really old school defender where, he would put in a heavy tackle. His positioning would be good, but his pace would be a little bit off. He wouldn't be good on the ball. And just like so many other players, he's developed so much under Eddie Howe. And I think we're only really seeing this praise from quite simply because we haven't seen him play too much on a consistent basis, since the takeover. Like, we've seen him, occasionally in cup games, maybe 1 or 2 game run when someone will be injured. But this is probably the longest concurrent time we've seen him play. And it's great that he's slotting in and doing his job so well. Like so many players, like Matt Ritchie. Honestly, I don't think I've ever seen him like fitter than he has been. I feel like he's faster. He's on the pace more. Like, given that his age and given that he's not played much football, I'm watching him play. I'm thinking, you do not look out of place. And considering
I just need a corner kick celebration one more time from him. I think
I need him to boot a corner flag. But
I think it might be. Was it his 200th appearance?
Yeah,
it was his 200th appearance for the club. Yeah, which is obviously a great achievement. And just testament to his professionalism that he's come in. He came in during the championship season, and he's been such a great servant for us. And the fact he can still do a job now, as the old cliche goes, when needed, is just it's great. It's great. And these
I think you can see Matt Ritchie is going to probably be one of these lads that you can see stood alongside Eddie Howe and Tyndall in the coming years. He's going to be one of those where you can see him getting developed into that coaching side of things as well. I think Matt Ritchie will probably spend a long time at this football club after his playing career.
I think he'd be more of a Jason Tyndall than an Eddie Howe, though.
Oh, 100%.
Even though he looks just like Eddie Howe.
Imagine the opposition if they look to the right and they've got Jason Tyndall and Matt Ritchie going at them as well.
You just go back to your dugout, wouldn't you? You just hide. Yeah.
But lads, obviously the game went on there, and it was probably around about the 30th minute before, obviously, we'll get anything to talk about, really. I think what I want to address first of all, though, is the referee in that first 30 minutes, you could tell that he was losing the game straight away. There was a lot of challenges going in, a lot of soft challenges, really, which the referee was awarding to Arsenal from the get-go. And you could see the fans in St James's Park were getting frustrated how the referee was managing that game. But then the talking point comes. When Newcastle, well, before this, Newcastle were playing lovely football. They really were. And you could see Newcastle were getting into the game more. But obviously, the referee was keep bringing it up. Then, obviously, that break comes where Longstaff's got the ball on the left-hand side. He's looking at moving up the field. And then, out of absolutely nowhere, Havertz has just took a sprint at him and flew through the air. His left leg tucked under his arse and leading with his right leg and absolutely clatters Sean Longstaff. And from my position in the ground, I sit in the strawberry corner, and even I can see he's flew. You can see he's so far off the ground. And it's right in front of the linesman as well. Yeah. Right in front of him. And you're thinking, he's gone, yeah. There was no doubt in my mind that he was going. Then you see the referee just walking around with the yellow card in his hand. That you knew straight away he had made his decision there and then, without obviously listening to anything else which is happening around him. He's already made that decision, the yellow card's in his hand. What's your thoughts on that, first of all, Andy? So the challenge itself, from your point of view in the ground. I'm not sure where you sit. You sit in the Milburn side.
No, Leazes, towards the east side of the Leazes, under the away fans. So it looked really naughty from where we were. You could see him flying. And you could see his boot was raised and that it was studs towards Longstaff. And Longstaff's obviously not a softie by any stretch of the imagination. I know we like to play the dark arts sometimes, but you could tell he was properly clattered by it. Everyone was up in arms. And obviously in the ground, it had that feeling of the world's against us, even though I know there's Arsenal fans will think the world was against them in that game. But in that moment, it really did feel like the referee was doing everything in his power to not send a player off. I mean, I was obviously in full raging at the game mode where I thought, oh, this is just because they don't want Sky Sports' big game to be ruined on a Sunday and blah, blah, and on Saturday night and blah, blah, blah. And I thought it was one of those where if the referee had given a red, they wouldn't have VAR'd it the other way. And it was almost like the referee knew he had the protection of VAR to only give a yellow card. So it was naughty. I know Lascelles was straight in his face saying you were trying to do him there. All the players went around it. And then that red card tackle resulted in us getting 3 yellow cards. So work that one out.
It did, Joe. So obviously Havertz gets the yellow card. Then there's a lot of players around. A lot of Newcastle players, a lot of Arsenal players. But on the back of that, it's Gordon who gets a yellow card. I think Gordon's just in the wrong place at the wrong time. So
he didn't even do anything.
It's one of those.
He just stood there and the referee went.
You see those videos on referees. Yeah, you see those videos of referees just literally picking out yellow cards to anyone who's around. It was one of those moments. I'd like to quickly just address the VAR thing. Reckless, not dangerous is what it was officially called by VAR. And I want to know what the hell the difference between that is, because if Havertz's right leg had made any kind of solidified contact, it made contact, but it didn't make solidified contact. If it did, that's a leg breaker. And regardless, he's jumped up, his studs are showing, he's going straight in, it's late, he's out of control. I have seen those given as red cards for far less. And I don't understand the lack of consistency. Now, if there's any Arsenal fans watching, yes, we're going to talk about the Bruno incident. We're not biased too much. But the point is, the lack of consistency that referees are showing in protecting players is farcical. And the fact that VAR is backing it up as well is even more concerning, because you think that VAR is there as a protective blanket to call up against any obvious mistakes that referees make. And to me, I'm sorry, but it doesn't matter whether he made full contact or not. He wasn't in control of that tackle. He had no desire to get the ball. It was really dangerous play, and you've got to take action on that. Now, for the yellow cards, that whole thing's ridiculous. I know that this rule has come in whereby it's really to protect referees from players surrounding them and harassing them, and really the captain should be the only one who's speaking to the referee in that regard. So it's difficult because they are implementing that rule, but then it's a very natural thing when a tackle like that goes in, and when you feel like the decision's not being made your way.
Especially when they've just seen the teammate nearly get the leg snapped as well.
Well,
you can't expect your players just to stand there in silence after that.
But then I wouldn't even say they were like shouting at them, harassing. They were literally just speaking to them. And
later on during the game, they were more giving the Arsenal players chip than the referee as well.
Well,
it was like,
yeah. And later on during the game,
Havertz into the crowd.
Yeah, like later on during the game, I remember Saka having a go at the linesman because he thought it was their throw-in, and nothing was given for that. So because Saka was speaking to a different official who wasn't holding the cards, nothing happens. But if you speak to the referee in that regard, then you get yellow carded. Where's the consistency? If it's going to be
I don't think
the referee, it should be all
because
officials.
Because I think Longstaff gets booked for doing the same to the fourth official. I'm sure Longstaff is having an argument with the fourth official.
Was he one of the three that got booked for having his
Longstaff was one. Yeah, so Longstaff was the first one that got booked. Then it was. Then
he got back up and got booked.
I think it was Gordon. Then
you shouldn't have shouted "F off me ankle" when you got tackled.
So basically, it was just three lads showing the discontent of the decision which is being made, basically by saying, "How mate? That's a red card all day long." Obviously, we don't know what was said. We don't know if it was said in an aggressive manner or what.
Well, that's it.
Probably was, and rightly so, to be honest with you, because it was a shocking decision.
I think,
and that's from the on-field referee and VAR as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult because, in one respect, I'm all for I think referees do need to be respected on the field and have the captain speak. And I understand why this rule is in place. I think it's just the fact that seemingly the wrong decision was made and that our players weren't protected, and yet we come off worse in that whole scenario. To me, that just doesn't feel right. It's a difficult one because emotions run high in a game, and at the end of the day, they did surround the referee, and whatever was said. So, yeah, it's just ridiculous that it wasn't a red card.
No, I'm in agreement with everything everybody said, and I think, Andy, we see this a lot of time at St James's Park when the referee makes those sort of decisions against Newcastle United. That gets the fan base on side as well with the rest of the lads, and the noise coming out of St James's Park after that was deafening, and those sort of moments change games enormously. When the St James's Park fans and there's 50,000 were there on side, that changes things in our favour. So probably the referee lost it at that point, but it's probably worked in our favour to the same extent as well.
Yeah, I think if the game plan was to shut the fans up, then Kai Havertz didn't get the memo because that was the worst possible thing he could have done. I mean, I was already frustrated because I was getting wound up at the Arsenal fans because they didn't sing a single Arsenal song. Before then, it was all just about Newcastle and how bad we were and blah, blah, blah. So that was annoying me already. And then this happened, and I just thought, I cannot wait to win this game. It was just one of those where, and I'm repeating myself, but I know Arsenal fans will feel like the world was against them, and we'll get to that. But in that moment, after that happened, and we'd had a couple of decent chances, and then Arsenal had one or two nice moves in the final third, it was just like, I cannot wait. I really want to win this game, even though in the grand scheme of things, it's just one league game. And I don't know whether it's this sort of this wider point about us taking on the big six, and it feels like, even though some of it's sort of mental conspiracy theory stuff, some of it does feel like at times that we're having to sort of pry open a diamond to get into this big six with everything working against us. And yeah, the atmosphere was really good. I know there's been a bit of criticism recently of atmospheres. It does seem a bit up and down. That Arsenal game was great atmosphere. I'm hoping that we don't need these sort of moments to rile us up to make the atmosphere good every time, but obviously you can't. I think it was Bessie that said this in our group chat. We're very reactive to what happens on the pitch as a fan base, and when you see that, and it because we've got this connection with the players, and we all feel like they're our mates, and we want to protect them. Something like that, where someone nearly gets the leg snapped, it gets us going, and it won us the game, I think.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. And Joe, obviously coming up to half time there, I think Arsenal get a decent chance beforehand, which they should have scored from. And just deliver straight down, and the thought of Nick Pope just catches it. I think it's from Martinelli, I think, that has a shot.
Yeah.
He skips past a couple of players, and I think Trippier tries to slide in, and Trippier's just nowhere near the ball. It's more of a block, really, than anything. And he's just skipping past a few players and just, like I said, straight down the throat of Nick Pope. But other than that, obviously, before halftime, you could see it getting a bit tasty, couldn't you? Obviously, that after that challenge on Longstaff from Havertz, it was getting tasty, and from a few players as well. Bruno being the highlight of it. And we'll talk about Bruno.
Talk about this.
We'll have to talk about Bruno. And like Joe said, we are not biased. We like to call it as it is. And so when Bruno first makes a challenge, then obviously the Arsenal player goes down. And from my seat, it's still quite a distance away because it was just beyond the halfway line from me. And at that point, I'm thinking he's done something, because there was no real challenge from what we could see from our side. And I'm thinking he's already had a couple of digs at a few players. And we know what Bruno's like. He's an emotional character. And the fact that the referee didn't really control the earlier situation with the Havertz challenge just let Bruno go on a bit of a rampage, and he was able to do it. He had a bit of a free rein, didn't he?
He did. So, was it the Havertz challenge that happened almost immediately before it? Because I remember he was riled up. Like, he went in for a heavy slide challenge immediately before it, got up, and as he's running back, who was it that he hit again? It was
he tries to clatter right first, doesn't he?
Yeah, but Jorginho gets the ball, and he releases it, and then Bruno comes up behind him, and I don't know if you've seen the replay, but he does bring up an elbow. Yeah, that is naughty, and I don't know how VAR.
It's natural running action, man. Nothing wrong with it.
Of course it is. No,
I am joking.
Listen, Bruno's this is not me making an excuse, by the way. I'm just caveating it by saying Bruno's a very emotional character, and a lot of the time that comes across really well in his game. And it riles the fans up, it riles players up, and you do need that to an extent. But that was an absolute stonewall red. That was
100%.
I don't know what the heck. Completely. He goes into the back room with his elbow. He just runs off. I don't know what he's playing at. He needs to learn to just not cross that line when he's in those moods. He needs to channel it in a way that is not going to get him sent off and just draw stupid fouls. We've seen Joe Linton do something very similar, whereby he can sometimes just put in these big, unnecessary challenges to give away free kicks. It did happen a few times this game, even though Joe Linton was fantastic yesterday. But no, that was a stonewall red from Bruno, and he's very lucky that he didn't get sent off. And he had a couple more challenges as well. A few more times he pushed. Was it Jorginho again in the back? In the back again. Yeah.
Is this somewhere he sprinted straight into his back and then told him to get up immediately?
That was
just strong armed him over.
So I don't know what he's doing. I don't know what he's playing at. It was ridiculous. But again,
you know what it is, Joe? It's like I said, it's because the referee let him get away with it, and because of what had happened earlier. So Bruno gets away with it.
But then VAR also turned around and said it wasn't classed as deliberate. So
true.
So VAR's had it. Basically, I think us and Arsenal fans, we can all agree VAR's had an absolute mare, as well as the referees had an absolute mare on both sides. Happy?
Yeah, 100%.
I think we'd be pretty content with that. The officiating was just shocking all around.
There was a couple of other ones as well, like even just smaller ones where the linesman had said the ball went out for an Arsenal corner and he was stood at the opposite side of the pitch and it was nowhere near out. And there was one where Arsenal should have clearly had a corner and it clearly came off a Newcastle leg right in front of me, and they gave a goal kick. They're just shocking all around. But I did see something online that Bruno, and I'm not basing this on anything other than one tweet I read, that Jorginho is a Brazilian born who plays for Italy, and Bruno might have a little bit of a bad taste about that. I think they look down upon a bit in Brazil, so could be a bit of that behind it.
Yeah, I think
it's still a red.
It's also
a red. Of course, it's a red.
When you see one person tweet, was that Frank that's done that?
yeah.
I'll let somebody else say that.
Yeah, but speaking of some of the challenges as well, I think we have to talk about Burn and Saka. They had quite a battle on their hands in the first half, and when Burn got that back injury, he was being quite reckless towards the end. I don't know if you guys noticed, but he was just going in, making silly challenges.
I think he knew he couldn't run, so he was just clattering him every time, wasn't he?
He was, yeah. And, Saka was really good at drawing those fouls against the likes of Dan Burn. So the fact he went off at half-time, I mean, obviously, we'll speak about the impact that the substitute had coming on.
A half-time comes along and Dan Burn goes off, replaced by Livramento. Then, so at half-time, I stayed, obviously pitch side. I didn't go into the concourse or anything. I stayed in my seat, and you could see Livramento was away from the rest of the lads. training, and you think, right, he's coming on. You're thinking, oh, what's wrong with Trips? He looked all right there. Then obviously Dan Burn goes off, and I'm thinking, a lot of people have wanted this moment where Trippier gets shifted across the left.
A lot of people.
Well, a handful of people. And it's been growing. Do you know what it is? To be fair, Daryl, I think there's been more. There's been a fair few people on social media saying that because Liverpool is doing really well. Exactly. With Liverpool doing well, should we start shifting Trippier over a left back? And I've always been on the impression, no, you don't move Trippier from his natural position because he's probably one of our best players, if not the best, most games. Why would you move him? Okay, unless it's forced. And I think that's what's happened in that game against Arsenal. So yes, Hall could have came on, but he's going to have a difficult job on his hand against Saka as well. So you put somebody like Trippier against him. Trippier knows Saka really well from international duty as well. And Tripp's done a really good job at left back.
Yeah, I think I've seen him play left back for England, and I really didn't rate him. I think he had a bit of a stinker. And I'm the same as you, Chris. I've always said, what's the point of just trying to fit a square peg into a round hole? Remember the phrase there. But I think it helps as well that Saka's obviously one of these wingers that comes inside, so at least he's being shown on to Trippier's right. I think if he had someone who was maybe a bit more direct running down the line, that's when he might struggle. But yeah, it's the stuff dreams is made of from people who play FIFA who just want to have Liverpool and Trippier there playing together. But you know, it worked, and Tino again came on, looked absolutely class. Did a couple of amazing bits of defending, a couple of slide tackles, one where he nipped the ball away, then it looked like the Arsenal player was just going to let it run out, and Tino just nipped in front of him, got clipped, won a free kick, bought us a couple of minutes. He just looks mint, doesn't he? And he's got to be the most unlucky player in the world that he's got the best right back in the world in front of him because he's class, because he's the second best right back in the world.
Like I said, he is the definition of a pickpocket because he just nicks it and he nicks it and he's away like every single time.
He's got the speed for it as well. For all of Trippier's
massive as well,
fantastic abilities. He's not the fastest, and we're just seeing this absolute acceleration from the right hand side when Livramento comes on, and it's just another outlet. It's just another tool in the arsenal, for lack of a better phrase.
Speaking of a tool in an arsenal, I think we'll get on Arteta towards the end of this as well.
Oh, shall we do that?
We're still talking about talking points.
Yeah, I got to add a few more things first, don't we?
But there was another sub not long after that as well, Joe. Where Willick comes on, Wilson goes off, and that's probably more a thing of we've only got one striker at the minute. We're going to have to keep him for Dortmund. But then Willick comes on. Do you know what it is? The more I see Willick, the more I love him. He's fantastic, isn't he?
Yeah, I'm going to do the old Pardew cliche. He's like a new signing. He really, really is, man. He's that, you know. So when we were looking at the sort of centre midfield during the summer, we were saying that we really need like a direct attacking outlet. And when we bought Tonali, we were like, okay, he's a great player and offers a lot, but he's not that. I think we're quick to forget how fast and direct and pacey and skillful Willick is as a player. He might not be, like a James Maddison type, but he's the kind that's going to give you that engine in midfield like a Joe Linton, but he's going to offer perhaps a little bit more in the final third, and that's just what we saw. He's come on against Man United, done brilliantly, obviously scoring the third by again driving down, trying to either force defenders to commit or pushing them back, and then again for the goal yesterday, his pace and his footwork was able to keep the ball on the pitch, because it was on the pitch and it definitely didn't go off the pitch. We're just putting that out there. But he's been fantastic. And that interchange as well between Joe Linton and Willick as well.
Yeah, we missed that.
We've missed that so much, because Joe Linton also has a really good role out there on the left. Can't be understated. So we've missed that. Now, Gordon going into the centre, obviously he got his goal for it. And I think he's offering something. Yeah, okay, he might not be that poacher, he might not be that holder player that Callum Wilson is, but he's still a really good third option. And like I say, it allows us to bring other players into play.
I think what we'll have to look at though, Andy, is the fact that yes, we've got that in our locker where Gordon can fill in there if needs be. But the way everybody can switch when that formation gets put into play, and the likes of, like we mentioned there, Joe Willick, Joe Linton, even Longstaff, Murphy, Miggy, whoever's on the right hand side. It must be a nightmare for the defence to try and defend against those lads, because they've all got some pace and they're always just switching and running into space, and it's just leaving gaps all over the shop. And that's where we take advantage of these sort of teams.
Yeah. Nightmare for the opposition players, but also for the coaching. When you're trying to sort of plan to play Newcastle, and you must put these graphics up of where everyone plays, and then you start the game, and then you've got Joe Linton standing right wing and Willick going up top and all these mad things. But the front three, especially the fluidity of that front three, is amazing. I mean, we saw it earlier in the season where we ended up putting Murphy up front, and then Gordon was out the right, and Miggy went out left, and I think it's just great coaching. Everyone knows how all of the other positions are supposed to play. So you get the impression, this is maybe going a bit too far, but you get the impression that like Gordon knows what Trippier is supposed to do tactically. So he could go and stand right back and know roughly where he's supposed to be and things like that. Everyone just knows what they're doing. And I agree with Joe. We have missed Joe Linton on the left. I think the fluidity of them two last season was great when Willick would sometimes go on the left wing, and then their right backs thinking, oh, do you know what, this is great. I know how to deal with Willick now. And then suddenly you've got this absolute tank of Joe Linton suddenly running at you. And then this season, you've then got Gordon running at you. And then sometimes we put Miggy over that side. And then, when I think my only downside to us attacking wise is just being burned. But the way we play, where we will sort of force a team down one side, win the ball back, then immediately ping it across to the right, get the overlap. It must be impossible to defend against. There's so many times where Miggy just holds it, plays a perfect little pass to Trippier on the overlap, and he puts it across. Like, how do teams not know we're doing this? Well, they obviously do, but we just do it so well that people don't know how to deal with it. So yeah, it's just class. It's just class.
So it's just after the substitutions are made, Joe, where we'll grab the goal. Obviously the last sub which comes on, it's Miggy off and Murphy on. I just want to highlight as well, before we touch on the goal, once again at half time. Mark pointing this out to me, and I had noticed when Murphy was running at half time with the rest of the lads, you could tell he was running in full flight. You could see he was protecting that arm, which obviously we'll touch on what happened in the game. But obviously, just to jump back to the goal, how well does Willick do to keep that ball in, determined to keep that ball in?
He kept it in. It was in. Everyone can stop with this nonsense that it went out. You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of the World Cup. Do you remember?
The Japan game, wasn't it?
And it was literally like a hair's breadth in. I don't think ours was quite as as tight as that.
It was close.
No, it was in. It was definitely in. It genuinely was in. Now, every single angle I see, and I understand you can't get a completely perfect parallel view, so it's sometimes difficult, but you can tell the ball's in. You can tell the ball's in. I had people who were sat in Strawberry Corner as well, front row, and they were like, "Yeah, it definitely didn't go out." Chris, I don't know if you can attest to that.
It was right in front of me, like right in front of us, but it's hard for me to tell at that point because
I suppose because you were
the
right
ball,
on.
So you can't see.
Yeah, and you were right on. Yeah, but I had people
in real time. It didn't look out at all. Like,
nah, the people who I was speaking to were literally like on with the line, and they were like, "No, it stayed in." But
it's very similar to when you see the opposition take a corner, and you can see it's right on the line, and the referee comes over checking and just goes, "All right, it's fine." It's just very similar to that.
Listen, we don't need to hang up on this one thing because we got another 3 possibilities.
Exactly.
Because VAR took about 10 minutes just to decide whether it was a goal or not. So we had the potential of going out. Then we had a potential foul on Gabriel. Then we had a potential offside. And then there was the fourth thing. Then there was a handball, which I don't even know where was it.
Joe Linton.
Maybe a handball on Joe Linton. For God's sake, it came off his leg.
The announcer was hilarious with all that as well, by the way, because he was just like, "There's another VR check going on now."
Did you recognise who the announcer was? Because it was a different announcer. Do you know who it was?
I recognise the voice, but
I might be wrong, but I'm pretty confident it was Steve off of the Steve and Karen show on Metro Radio in the morning. I think it was him. I might be wrong, but I think it was him.
That's a GallowgateShots exclusive.
Confirm. But right, let's talk about this. We'll talk about the foul on Gabriel for starters, because when I looked at that, I saw, from my perspective, and I think Gary Neville said the same thing, was that Gabriel was bending down to try and head the ball up. He was trying to get the flight path of the ball, and then obviously, Joe Linton does have his hands on him, but Gabriel's already falling down. So yeah, he's exaggerating it by Joelinton just having his hands on his
flings
back.
his legs. That's the issue.
He flings his legs as well, which it happens so fast, doesn't it? I mean, I could see why a foul would be given for that, but then, in my opinion, Gabriel initiated his own movement, and he was already going down, so therefore it's not a foul.
I'm with you, and I think Gary, like you said, Gary Neville sums it up perfectly. He says that yes, he's leaning down to knock the ball, get some flight on it. Then it doesn't help the way he's reacted once he's felt the pressure from Joelinton, like where he does just dive and throw his legs as high as he can up behind him. That doesn't help because that's not a natural motion. If you get pushed, it doesn't happen. So that hasn't helped him. Maybe if he had have just went to deck, maybe it may have been awarded as a free kick. You could probably see it given, but he tries to win it, and that's where he goes wrong. The offside, it's not offside.
Can anyone clarify this? Because I know that because they were behind the keeper, Gabriel becomes the last defender, but then so Gordon would have to be behind Joelinton, wouldn't he, to receive the pass in order to be onside?
Yeah, I think that there has to be a
forward
pass.
Yeah,
I believe.
Sorry, it has to be. It has to be a forward pass.
Also, to be offside, the ball would have to be played forward.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah,
in front of him.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah,
because he's behind the keeper and the defender, so he is technically between the keeper and the last defender, which is an offside position. But then, as we know from our pro clubs, you play it backwards. But the sweaty goal, that's not offside.
Sweaty goal for the lads.
It was a really terrible sweaty goal.
Yeah, I think it's a rare instance of it's a rare rule, isn't it? Where you see it like come into real life, and then it's a case of finding out who does and who doesn't know the rules, because everyone's flying about going, "Oh, he was offside," or "He wasn't." It's like, well, he was deemed onside. So yeah, absolutely great goal. And Gordon, once again, man, he is really stepping up his game this season.
Yeah, and he said after the game that he'd been joking on about playing number 9. Clearly wasn't expecting to have to do it quite so much this season, but I think we knew if he played as a number 9, he'd be really good making those runs. We saw against Man United, just making decoy runs, running in behind, running with the ball. But that's a proper goal poacher's finish. Stood in the right place, just onside.
Well, that's it. Yeah, and like we say, it's bringing the likes of Joelinton and Willick into play a lot more as well. And you're almost playing not just with a striker, you're playing with a dedicated front three that's coming inside and interchanging. And it goes back to what we said before about how these players are just so versatile, and other teams can't deal with us because they don't know what they're going to come up with.
Yeah, just to wrap it up, because there's a couple more talking points, is that I think that this was addressed on Match of the Day as well. Newcastle must be the hardest working team, not just in the Premier League, but in world football at the moment, because you look at the likes of, and I think Joelinton's a prime example for this, the engine on that lad from the first whistle right until full time, and there was a lot of added time as well. He grafted his arse off for that full game of football right until the dying moments, and you love to see it. And it's not just him, and that's where we're getting the better of teams, that we can do this for the full 90 plus then some.
It is, but it's not just running, it's strength as well. Like, it's hard enough running the 5 million miles you do a game, but it's also running with a football is ridiculously tiring as well, and the mental strength to keep doing that and going in 1v1 in duels, winning the aerial challenges, getting bumped and whacked all the time. I know we're sort of bumping and whacking people in the game as well, but it must be knackering. And then to have a few days recovery, then go again and still go 100%. They're just class. And it's Howe's ethos. He's got it into them completely.
And it's one thing covering a lot of ground when you're maybe a bit scattered and you're having to recover yourself into back into position because you're out of line or whatever. But we seem so disciplined, especially at the back. There's not a single player who I think is regularly out of position or is causing spaces to be in the midfield, or it rarely happens.
It's not aimless running, is it?
No, exactly. It's not.
It's like when Mike Richards was talking about Bruno Fernandes for Man U, and how when they're going against stuff, he just starts sprinting around, so the fans go, "Look how hard he's working."
Just looks
no one like that in our team. It's like for a fact, and it's just.
Once again, it was highlighted on Match of the Day, the fact that they do it in numbers as well, and they're just completely chopping and changing all game long, and there's always somebody there to fill in a void that somebody may have left in whatever phase of play has just gone by. Longstaff, prime example of that. Longstaff is unbelievable. at doing that. And it's credit to Eddie Howe and the coaching staff and to the lads that have bought into this as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it goes back to what I was saying earlier about the likes of Matt Ritchie and Paul Dummett and Jamal Lascelles coming into the team, and they're not looking out of place because they are grafting the same way that all of the other players are. And their positioning is fantastic. They're running, they're tackling. It just feels like everyone is on the same wavelength, regardless of whether you're in the starting 11 or you're, like almost like in the reserves, you're barely making the bench. When you come into that team, you know exactly what you're doing. And this week has just been, again, a really good testament to the coaching staff that they can bring these players in when they need to, and just they don't look out of place.
It's a great team performance. It really is a fantastic. And yes, you look at Man United and see the same thing because those 8 changes and the lads come in and do such a great job against Man U. You look against Arsenal, and we've seemed to have generated this rivalry with Arsenal over the last few seasons. I don't actually know where
they can't handle it. They can't handle it, man.
It's just this rivalry, and it's probably Arteta which has probably fueled this. To be honest with you, and I think we need to address Arteta and his comments after the game as well, Andy, because
we all just laugh for 5 minutes.
Yeah, you're talking about toys out of the pram. And Hay is just the definition of that at the moment. He's decided that he spent 20 years in the Premier League, and now that he hates the league, he's embarrassed by the league. It's not the greatest league in the world anymore, just because he's not happy with a decision. Doesn't address anything which was mentioned about Havertz. Doesn't address that. Luke Edwards gives him a little bit of a grilling as well, and asks him to clarify what he means and which one of the 3 decisions in VAR he didn't agree with. He gets himself all in knots, and it looked like he was on the verge of tears, which was amazing to see.
There was a great tweet that I saw this morning where someone took his comments from just a few weeks ago about how we need to give officials a break. They've made mistakes. It's going to happen in the game. But
it was the Liverpool game,
patient. And then a decision goes against him, and all of a sudden he's embarrassed to be part of the game. Sorry, it doesn't work.
He's completely deflecting from the fact that they had absolutely nothing. They offered absolutely nothing in that game. Do you know what, Arsenal fans?
The XG was
if that goal doesn't count, it's 0-0. We probably don't sit back as much. We probably push on and try and get another goal. What did they do in the game? They had the Martinelli shot, which you say it's a chance, but Martinelli kicked it straight at the keeper, so that's your fault. And then there was one where Declan Rice had a header, sort of maybe 10, 12 yards out, and he put it wide.
Yeah.
Right. What else are you complaining about then? The decision didn't decide the game, did it? It's not like the Liverpool one where it was genuinely a terrible mistake. And as funny as it was seeing Klopp cry that time around, that was a proper howler. The decision that was made wasn't a proper howler. It was, minor on the ball going out, completely minor. The offside, you can't even really see where the ball is. And the push on the back, it's not really a push on the back. It's a subjective decision. So get over it. Howe's outdone you. You had the better of us last time at St James's. We had the better of you the time before. We're 2 good teams, and you came out on the wrong side of it. And Eddie Howe's mint. So get over it.
Well summarised, Andy.
Spot on. He's acting like, I remember, I think it was last season when we went to the Emirates and we sort of scraped that 0-0 draw, and you thought we got away with one there. I think it was last season. And I think Arteta had similar comments perhaps about how there's only one team looking to win the game and all that. But this time round, it's absolutely ridiculous. I mean, I said before, like, their XG, for what it's worth, was like 0.56. So they weren't even due a goal. And that's not on a VAR decision. That's not on 2 VAR decisions. At the end of the day, they barely offered anything. Yeah, okay, they had a fair bit of the ball, and they managed to get into our final third, quite a bit, but we dealt with it. So,
and Arteta was one of these managers that was pissing and moaning about how long the ball was in play during these sort of games. Have you ever seen anybody take so long to tie a shoelace? I think it was Declan Rice.
Right. I forgot about this. Right. So unless there's a head injury, why is play being
quadruple knot?
Was it Declan Rice?
I think it was.
Yeah. So why, if it's not a head injury, why are you stopping the game? I think it was Callum Wilson who literally went up to the ref or the linesman and was saying, like, it's not a head injury. Why are you stopping the game?
I mean, I
That is-
know,
yeah,
I know
it's
footballers are
ludicrous.
sometimes not seen as the brightest, but they all know how to tie the laces, how it? It's not that hard.
It took him, honestly, it took him a lifetime.
A goal
I
kicks as well
just-
with Raya. It's like,
Yeah,
I'm not going to go off
it
on
was
it again.
horrendous. It was horrendous.
He's
I
a
think
hypocrite.
one of the other things, and just to wrap this one up, because we've been going for 45 minutes, and this is quite a
Oh,
long
God.
one. And
It's
I blame
been a lot to
Arteta.
talk about, mate. It's been a lot to talk about.
One of the things I think we'll have to give a well wishes to Jacob Murphy. Like I said at halftime, you could say he wasn't really running confidently. Then he's sprinting after the ball and it pops. You can see his arm absolutely pops. It didn't look good. But then we see the referee stepping out for that as well, Joe. So we've got to be fair. The referee stopped the game at that point as well, because you can see
I think a
he
pop
can't even put his arm down.
Shoelace though. Yeah,
It is.
Well,
It is.
I'm
different, but it's
surprised.
not a head
I'm
injury
very
either way.
surprised. I'm very surprised he came on in the first place, because if anyone knows anyone who's popped a shoulder out, you know how easily it comes back out again. Especially 2 weeks after it happened.
Yeah. Well, needed surgery apparently.
Yeah, just got
well, you're playing a contact sport, and I don't know who signed it off. Obviously, I'm no medical expert, but clearly they've got it wrong in this instance. He lasted 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and the more that happens, the weaker it becomes. So I think that's probably going to be Murphy out for a fair bit. I imagine he'll get surgery.
Be after till the international break, at least, won't it?
At least, yeah. At least, maybe even I don't know. It's hard to say, but it was sad for him. But he seemed to be in high spirits afterwards. So it's one of
great,
those. He just
great
needs
team
to...
photo in the dressing room with Bruno just pointing down.
Love
this, love this.
Yeah, of course it was.
It was class, absolutely class.
But but again, it's just as maybe as premature his appearance was. It was great to see him being determined to want to get back on the pitch as soon as possible.
Yeah,
and it's back to the whole ethos of what the Eddie Howe's instilled into this team. So yeah, best wishes, Jacob. Get better soon. Please stop popping it out, and hopefully we'll see a big grinning face again soon, scoring goals.
But overall, lads, like I said at the very start, what a week! Absolute fantastic week, and Andy, hopefully your week will get a hell of a lot better as well. Because like we said at the very start, you're in preparation to when do you actually go to Germany?
So recording now on Sunday, I'm going on the ferry tomorrow from Hull. Tomorrow, about 2:00 in the afternoon, overnight ferry. I can't wait. I really hope we've obviously had two really tough games. This is the third. If we can make that 3 out of 3, I'll be a happy bunny. Yeah, can't wait for it. Got a preview coming up where we'll talk more about it, but very excited. I haven't changed out my Newcastle top from Arsenal. I'm just going to keep it on the ferry at the game. Just don't get changed for a week.
If you wait that long, mate, you might be able to put that up front. It'll be running itself.
Aye.
Thanks everybody for joining me today, and thanks everybody who has been watching this one or listening. If you're listening to the audio, like the video, it means a lot to us. Become a subscriber, costs you nothing to do that. If you do want to give an extra bit back, it is just starting from $2.99 a month to become a member. You get early access to these sort of videos. You get extra videos as well, and access to the Telegram group as well, which is crazy at the moment there. That's it for us. Like Andy said, we will be back with a match preview for the Dortmund game. I'll be back on Monday night for the live show on the Always Smiling Faces podcast. Plenty more stuff coming your way. Thanks. What are you doing? See you later.